So welcome everyone to another promise to be exciting launch hour session. My name is Paul Eribami, as usual, the MD of Max-Migold Limited, and the head of faculty of the Max-Migold Training Center. We have, over the years, pioneered training in facility management and created a credential for facility managers, first of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa. Also built the largest FM professional alumni body that is thriving with almost 1,000 members and growing. So we made some changes during the week. The FM Mastercraft Diploma class that was supposed to start on April 7th will now be starting on May the 12th. So this is to give more people the opportunity to join the program. So we're excited to do this extension, and it's something that is highly demanded, that we allow it to start in May to accommodate as many people as possible. So please, if you have been on queue for the FM Mastercraft Diploma, this announcement is for you. You have time now to make your payments. If you look at the website, you will notice that the costs have risen significantly, almost 20% or more. So we have the physical class now at 975,000, the virtual class at 750,000, but we have provided a discounted entry for this batch alone, right? So for the batch starting on May 12th, the payment for the physical class will be the old rate of 750,000, and the discounted payment for the virtual class will be the old rate of 550,000. In addition to this, you get a 10% discount on these old rates, valid till the 15th of April. And after that, it drops to 5% that will run to the end of April. So it's an exciting opportunity for you, anyone you know who's interested in taking the program. They will commit now and be on the wait list to start on May 12th. Okay. Don't forget that we provide training for teams of facility managers, operations personnel, maintenance personnel, teams of cleaning, security, and other support services staff, virtually on everything from maintenance to productive way of working, safety, all kinds of documentation. We train on all of it. And then for the managers, we have a lot of courses that you can take. If you've taken the FM diploma and you don't want to take, you want to take another level of course, we can work with you to get international certifications like the FMP, the SFP, the CFM as well. So yeah, this is a time for progress, and progress in the industry requires that you equip yourself with the right skills and tool sets to be able to deliver premium results. We also have for the current class ongoing, we have some field trips planned where we'll take them out on the tour, visit some properties, learn about the best practices in managing those facilities, and help them to learn and take back the lessons. And then we also have for, if you in the program and interested in the program, internship placement opportunities to put you a foot in the door into the full-time employment with organizations. We help you get that placement, and we also provide recruitment services for the built environment. So pretty much you not only get to be trained from the best facilitators and who are all experienced in their domains, the area of subject matter expertise. You also get a lifetime of mentorship from the institution. You get a support structure built around the alumni. You get networking opportunities, opportunity for mentoring, not just from the alumni, but also from the faculty members. So it's, and then of course, the job placements that we provide. And so far we have achieved a 97% success rates with all of these value propositions and offerings that we provide to our students. So we look forward to a wonderful session come May 12th. So don't miss out on this. And if you want us to train your team, your organization, 3 days, 2 days training, any kind of package, we have more than 100 modules that we can cherry pick what's relevant to help create the right impact and the right change in the team to ensure you get the desired results. So invite us. Just write in an email to training@maxmigold.com.ng or send a WhatsApp chat to 08022020122 or just call that number. We get to know about your requirements, and within 24 hours, we are there discussing the details to run the program for you. Max-Migold is a facility management company. Training is just one of the things we do. We've made the right impact. We have somebody trained in not less than 60% of all organizations that hire facility managers so far, and we have a very considerable market share of the training industry. But our prime services, our operations and maintenance services for facilities, whether it's on estates, commercial, retail, corporate head offices, Max-Migold has all it takes to provide you with these FM services. And then we, as part of what we do, energy efficiency, energy management systems, smart monitoring for homes, offices, factories, as well as smart buildings, where we set up IoT-enabled smart devices to help control and automate your buildings. So whether you're a developer trying to sell enhanced value proposition to your clients, or you just trying to upgrade your own dwelling, your own office or home, please call on Max-Migold for smart building solutions that will be pocket friendly and give you the solutions that will make your home energy efficient and intelligent at the same time. All right, so that being said, I'm going to go into today's topic. Okay, for those who are not in our WhatsApp group, facility management training, our Facebook group, Max-Migold Facility Management Training and Services, Telegram group, Max-Migold Facility Management Training and Services. Please do well to search this out and join. The team will be dropping the link as well on this chat, so you can, wherever you're joining us from, be able to see just a link to click and join any of our platforms. Because in those platforms, we provide training opportunities, we provide job opportunities, and you'll be the first to know what's going on with the organization and with the results that we are getting for our clients. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Emergency response and incident reporting. When something goes wrong, the question in everybody's mind is, what caused it, isn't it? So here we want to think about how to have a structured approach to risk in our risk management in our facilities. Crises are bound to happen, right? But we have to have a structured approach to anticipate, to prepare for, mitigate, avoid certain risks, depending on the risk appetite of our organization, aligned to the strategic business objectives of the organization. And when we do encounter unforeseen risks that we are not prepared for or such negative occurrences, we have the standard protocols already set in place within the organization with which we can respond. So in this session, we're just basically going to have that. I'm going to be as basic as possible because one thing that people worry about when we talk about emergency preparedness, business continuity, risk planning, resilience of our workplaces and homes and residences is the sheer amount of consulting efforts or knowledge that will be required to set up those standard operating procedures. So even though that's a core area of business for us, I use trainings like this to help you, create even at the basic form, thinking about it if you're not thinking about it before, if you've always waited for things to happen and then you reacted, then this session will spring you into that mode where you actually anticipate. And that is not a bad thing. It's a very good thing to be able to conjure up documents and plan. Should it happen, this is my alternative action or plan, whatever I'll do. You need to have that in place. That mindset alone prevents you from actually having problems. Let me tell you a story. When I was growing up, I lived in a village. Sometimes for holidays, sometimes I just move in and stay a couple of years. And there's this popular adage, because you have so much forest around and bush around, they will always tell you that you will not be bitten by a snake because if you have an anti-snake venom at home, right? So I have an anti-snake venom and it's at home. It's not with me when I'm walking through the forest or going to the farm or walking in the farm. It's not with me. How does a snake that is, prowling that forest know that I have an anti-snake venom and, prevent itself from crossing my path, right? But the whole thing about that little myth or that ideology shared with us as kids is the fact that if you proactively think about the dangers of a snake bite and take proactive measure, right, to reduce the impacts or the injury that comes from a snake attack or a bite, you have crossed a major obstacle off because you'll be less careless. You are now, that first effort to go and buy that antivenom is a consciousness that makes you less careless, more attentive, more careful. You tend to have that awareness of inherent dangers of snakes lurking around in the bushes, right? Compare that to someone who never had that mindset. You don't have that kind of awareness. You don't have that kind of thought. You can't conjure up the possibility that a snake can cross the part of a snake and get bitten, right? Because of that, you are more likely to step on the called up cobra, because you are not, you're not in a state of active consciousness regarding such a risk. So that's the whole idea. So that's the first, and that's the foundation of all that we're going to be talking about, to be in the aware mode, right? So that when it's time to now, come up with what we call identify potential hazards and risks, you can pop up as many as possible, because if you can't bring that up, if you cannot think about it, then you cannot create plans, right, to mitigate, avoid, prevent, whatever the considerations are. So we'll now go from there to talking about how to develop and implement emergency response plans, and then the steps for incident reporting and documentation. And this is another aspect of this lesson that is very key. If something negative, an occurrence that negative happens now, and you're able to react, recover, everything goes back to normal, what is the likelihood that it will happen again And what can you do to influence that potential or that likelihood? If you didn't document what happened, for example, for your own use, you didn't report it to someone else who now has another set of, pair of eyes and faculty to reason about it. And you never did any kind of root cause analysis to identify what happened, why it happened, who was involved, what changes can be made to prevent it from happening. The likelihood of that occurrence, that negative occurrence, even in its exact form, coming up again is very high. Very, very high. But if you go through that whole process of trying to understand what happened, why it happened, and then analyze what can be done to fix those root causes that you have identified, then you have crushed the likelihood or probability of that occurrence happening again, especially in the same form in the near future. So that's the whole idea of reporting incidents. It's not just to create a history, is to create a learning opportunity and an action plan, a correct plan to ensure that it doesn't happen again. All of these are going to make you more proactive, more successful in all that you do in the workplace. If you think about the risk that organizations encounter, they can be categorized broadly in terms of physical asset related risk. So the buildings, the environment, threats like security threats, terrorism, utility breakdown, just intrusion, and so on and so forth. There's so many risks that organizations encounter in the physical asset space. The facility manager, as the custodian of the physical assets of the organization, is the one that bears all of that risk. So if you compare that to what are the other risks that organizations encounter, financial risk, products not selling well, for example, no investors. Of course, they are also existential in terms of the impact on the organization. A cyber breach, key employees leaving the organization stranded. So many other areas you can think about the risk in the organization that the FM is not responsible for. So you have the internal audits, you have the C-suite leaders who look into all the other risks. Now, if you take these two categories of risk, the ones that are most obvious to more people, that gets more comments about, are the physical asset risk, because it is the one people see. Water, drips from a certain roof in your reception, and because it's raining, and everybody sees that there's a puddle of water on the floor, and somebody could slip and fall, right? That is obvious. All the cracked windows, or something happens and some roof got blown up, or just think about it, there was an intrusion, armed robbers, or the terrorists came and tried defense or whatever, or somebody was able to bypass the security, get in and something. You see that all of these are the most, some of them might be trivial and petty, some of them can be serious, very serious in fact, but they are obvious. They put you in the limelight. It's in some organizations, it almost looks as if the FM or physical asset risk are the only risk they have, because these are the ones that is just on everybody's faces. So you must be able to lead that charge. So the emergency preparedness team, in every organization, is not just the facility managers. It's not, because the risk the organization will need to deal with, things that can become emergency, are not only physical asset related, but because yours are the most obvious, most talked about, the biggest nuisance to more people, then you you have a very important role to play in that committee. So you work with that understanding, and then you especially have to be an expert on what can go wrong. Being able to identify what can go wrong, assess the risk, implement safety measures, and ensure compliance. It makes you a super hero for the organization. It requires a lot of proactivity, thinking ahead about what can go wrong. It's important to also think about, as part of your normal operations. So I normally call the risk management plan your abnormal plan, right? As part of your normal operations, you have the things you normally would procure in terms of materials and resources. But because you have this abnormal plan, this plan that that captures all the things that can become abnormal or things that can go wrong, you have to incorporate certain measures identified in that plan in your normal operations, like providing extra supplies of a certain type, engaging certain vendors that provide certain solutions that we don't normally need on a day-to-day basis, but have to be in place just in case something that abnormal plan comes about. So that's the whole idea. And then when something happens, you don't only have the plan of what to do to react, to respond, to recover. You also have the mindset as a business leader in the organization. How quickly can we restore operations to the level where it was before this disruption that we've encountered? So that's the job of the facility manager. What are some of the common things we encounter, right? In our facilities? Power outages is something that comes up as the top, every time we're talking about emergency scenarios. But you see, we've become so accustomed to it. So what do you have in place right now for power outage? Is it wait, they will soon bring it back, let's just hang on, killing productivity of the organization? Or is it the usual, we have a standby generator, an automatic system, and a manual approach, get it back, get it on, and of course it comes with a high cost. We've almost normalized power disruptions to the point where, for me, if I were to work on my emergency preparedness and business continuity plan, disruption of power will not be at number one, but it's the most common thing that we have. And then you have the issue of fires, right? Fires, mostly from electrical installations, is a big emergency scenario in our organizations. We have near misses, smoldering, smoke arising from the panel or from some connections, some device malfunction and starts overheating and so on and so forth. So there is that tendency that fires will lock around. All right. So what should be your priority in planning against or planning for a likely fire? Is the people. The first priority is the people. How do people get out of this space should that occurrence happen, that fire come up? Right. So that's the first thing. Before we're not talking about how to save the assets, fire suppression systems, things that mitigate the impact of the fire. But the first thing is get everybody out. How do you do that? If you now, take a look at your spaces you occupy, offices, workplaces, homes, you ask yourself this question. It will lead to modifications if there's no clear. Take, for example, one common thing that we have in all of our houses are burglar bars. We install burglary proof everywhere. They are fixed in place. We have that door that takes us into a corridor, that takes us into a stairwell, that brings us down to a door that takes us out. Right. Ask yourself, if there was a fire on that stairwell or that corridor, I'm in this room, how do I save myself? Something as simple as that. Just very simple question will lead you to, create, if you have 4 or 5 windows in an apartment, you turn one to a lockable one that has hinges just because of that question that has been asked, right? So evacuation is a big deal. There has to be that should have to be the first priority. I look at my house, for example, and I figure out exactly what I'm going to do in whatever floor, whether I'm on the second floor, the first floor, the ground floor. I figured out exactly what I'm going to do. Should there be a fire? Should there be anything that will require evacuation? And I make sure that the things I need to take those actions are in place on each of those floors, just to be sure that I can take those actions and evacuate as quickly as possible. That is what we must do for all of our workplaces. If you have an office between two, maybe, facing a corridor, and there are stairwells on both ends of that corridor, you need to go through that stairway and investigate what's going on at the bottom, right? Where they land. Is there possibility of exit from there, or is there a need to converge again into the center for a single? Of course, we do this for security reasons. Prevent people from just walking in and walking out at the light, have one point of control for security reasons. Security is very important, but you must balance that with life safety, as an approach for managing such scenarios. And then, of course, natural disaster. I think the most common one that we experience here is flooding. Rains are already here, right? So the rain is drizzling, doesn't stop for 5 days, and then the flood starts rising and rising and rising ever so slowly. But then it gets to a point and goes into motion, starts rushing into places, people start panicking, right? It happens from year to year, has almost the same kind of impact, from last year and last 2 years. And sometimes it gives you a breather some years, it's not very serious, and then again, it comes back in full force. So we never should be surprised. What surprises me is that we are still surprised about something that repeats itself. That means that we've never taken a look at it, the estate, the street community, whatever. We've not looked at it and said, look, this thing comes to us every year. What can we do to prevent it? That conversation sometimes needs to happen, needs to be initiated by someone in that community for such considerations to take place on how to prevent it. And then there are also the hazards, hazardous material spills. Of course, this can pose health concerns. Some of us may not realize it, but your familiarity with certain chemicals will make you think they are not harmful. Take detergent, for example. Because we use detergent all the time. If there's foaming of detergent or detergent bags, just open in a hallway or in a store, and the smell is choking that space, people don't even see it as, a hazardous material, right? It's just normal. Or some diesel, take diesel. We're so used to diesel kerosene. Say if there's some on the floor or it's leaking from something, draining elsewhere, and the fume, the smell is taking over that space, you just take it as normal. It's not diesel. So familiarity with these chemicals does not mean that they are no longer harmful. Inhaling them into your lungs creates permanent damage that may not be obvious the moment you encounter it, but prolonged and repeated exposure creates the damage that you find out later in life. Somebody's trying to diagnose something. There's so much guesswork. There's very little history. We don't have medical history. Most people, you just say, we don't have a properly documented life experiences that you can lay out before a doctor to be able to pinpoint why you're having a certain wheezing, a certain shortness of breath, a certain digestion of bowel movement problems and things like that. Like what happened 10, 15 years later. So exposure is a big deal. And then security threats, which is a major risk. So like I said, risk and safety must be balanced at all time in all our considerations. Well, so if you do have a proper risk management plan in place, you reduce risk to your occupants, the hazards minimize, property damage, of course, reduce or minimize or totally removed. Compliance, there are laws, the building code, the occupational health regulations, so many laws that govern the built environment. Compliance is a minimum expectation. What this means is that compliance is not, oh, we've done well. Compliance means this is the minimum that that is required, because you cannot operate below that level of compliance. And then, of course, the organization is in a better state of health because people are more productive. There's availability of all the critical assets and resources they need. Cooling is running, light is running, energy, power is working fine. Everything just working fine. So the organization gets a lot more done if you, the facility manager, can just ensure that the basic utilities to get work done is available without disruption, or reducing the number and length of time that these disruptions happen, to as low as practicable, to ensure that the wheels of productivity keeps spinning and generating results for the organization. And then it also builds trust and confidence among stakeholders and employees. People tend to have a sense of pride in their workplace if there is consideration, enforcement, planning, communication about safety, security, and all the risks that can come to them. You tend to see more confident workers because of that. All right, so to make the plan effective, you must have clear communication protocols. What triggers a certain action has to be defined. Something as simple as, oh, it's an emergency. What constitutes an emergency has to be defined in the plan. Then the roles and responsibilities. You know that everybody in our organization has their normal, you're all employed for different jobs. And so that's the normal job description that you will have. But once this abnormal plan or the risk management plan is created, we're not going to set up another team altogether to be on standby until there is a hazard or risk, right? So all of us that will be disrupted in our normal activity that's in our job description will not have to have a secondary role that should ideally now be added. So once we are assigned as fire marshal, fire warden, resuscitation, or first aider, the another first aider, whatever the assignment we get for this other part of our job life or roles, somebody should update the job descriptions and include that. So the assignment is done, the training or rotation is carried out, and then setting, before you even start having the simulations and drills, somebody should already update that when this happens, this is triggered by this person, right? And once that is triggered by this person, this, and this, take these steps, right? Everyone else moves in, steady, brisk steps in the direction of certain exits. All those are defined so that everybody knows exactly what they should do. So evacuation procedures, risk assessment and mitigation strategies, regular training and drills, and updates to ensure preparedness is very, very key. Because the worst thing that can happen in the case of emergency is having people who don't know what to do. Imagine somebody just having lunch, and in the course of having lunch, starts choking on a meal, a morsel or something that's in the mouth. And in the whole canteen or restaurant, nobody knows how to squeeze his chest or her chest to pop out that item. That person can actually die there just because of general ignorance, not necessarily apathy, because once somebody is choking or dying or suffering from something, everybody feels concerned. When it's some people go and carry buckets of water and come and pour in your head like this. I think that's the only remedy they know. Somebody's fainting and nobody's thinking about how to lift the leg up, how to unbutton to allow air to go through. Some of those basic things that should have been learned. So training is very key. These orientations are very important. Not everybody takes the time to learn them by themselves or from home, right? So it's important that we institute this as part of the plan. All right. So of course, everybody gets a role. They know what they should be doing. How communication is done. We have WhatsApp group. We have SMS that can be activated to everybody. We have emails that can be sent out. We have PA system in the building where somebody can make an announcement, and so on and so forth. It's important to just have that. This is how information is shared. And because we know what infrastructure is available for such communication, we document that as part of the plan. So one of the things I said earlier is you must define what an emergency is, what constitutes it, what can trigger, at what level of such occurrence or incidents can we say an emergency has occurred, right? So the baby or the constituent, what creates that emergency is usually the unexpected events that disrupt normal facility operations, which we call an incident. So whether it's health and safety hazard, spills, fires, injuries, or general accidents, somebody's driving a forklift in the yard and runs into a barrel containing another chemical, and the barrel breaks and chemical spills. All of the things, whether they cause injury or not, or whether they lead to property loss or not, provided it's an abnormal or disruptive occurrence in the facility, producing a negative result, it's definitely picked up as an incident that is recordable. And so for every incident that happens, there has to be a way to report it. Okay. So if you already have a plan that says, if this happens, this is how to go about it. Now, if that occurrence or incident now occurs or happens and nobody reports it, there's a likelihood that the procedure in place will not be applied. So it will not be an effort in futility creating the plan. So quick response to mitigate risk and prevent escalation is very, very important. Okay, so, and that's why you don't have the liberty to report it when it's convenient. A carpenter was working and then he mistakenly hit his toenail with a hammer. And then you looked at it, there was a sprain, there was a fracture, somebody has pulled it or pushed it back, put some ice around it, first aid has applied. And the guy says, oh, I'm fine. This will take me just about a week to get better. And then you say, because we have dealt with it, I'll report this into the appropriate channels tomorrow. You see, that approach to reporting is a big problem. Something else can happen before tomorrow that you're planning to report it. Because if a root cause analysis is not done almost immediately within 24 hours of such an occurrence, you probably won't know what exactly caused a carpenter to use his hammer on his own pinky, right? You probably won't know that there's a scenario or a situation that's playing out that might be affecting more than one worker. For example, if a group of workers have a bad news about one of them, of their own, and they're all feeling sad and not so cheerful because of that. But of course, the task has to be performed. They could still go on performing the task absent-mindedly. A root cause analysis done immediately, a report comes in that somebody has used a hammer on his pinky, would be enough to get everybody to the table quickly and say, what caused it? What caused it? Why did it happen? Why did it happen? if that root cause identifies the melancholy mood because of some bad news they heard yesterday or in the morning, it's better to, stop the work, bundle together in 30 minutes talk, counseling, conversation, cheering up moments, share drinks or whatever, snacks or whatever to, get people to feel better. Let's talk about it. Identify the likely, failures that this kind of mood can put us in. That alone can prevent additional escalations of such an issue, right? So it's important that reporting is done. And then there are some reports that will come at a time when you will not be able to avoid legal liability. So if something happens and the guy who got injured had left the organization because of that, or couldn't come back to work, and the next day you see someone summoning your organization to court for negligence and of duty. You had a duty of care to protect him and you did not, right? Just the mere fact that you treated the reporting with levity, you didn't capture it appropriately, you didn't do a root cause analysis, you didn't act on it, that alone can be used by a judge to slam a big fine on your organization. Trust me, organizations that lose cases on account of staff negligence, they're not going to be smiling when they hear or see that staff or hear the staff name in the nearest future. And be rest assured, that pain will lead to the point where when it's time to shortlist people who are not productive or who should leave, it will be easy to plug your name in there because it caused a major pain. Don't be the one that creates such a pain for the organization. Because if you can identify the pattern, what causes issues, you can plug it, you can prevent it from happening. Then ensures quick response to mitigate risk and prevent escalation, improve safety and by addressing hazards before they cause harm, enhance accountability by documenting events for future reference, aids compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, and supports continuous improvement by identifying the patterns and preventing recurrence. So what should be in an incident reporting document? Basically, what happened, the occurrence by name and description, the dates, the time, the location, and some explanation of what happened. If there are witnesses, there should be separate attachments of witness statements, but for very serious issues. But of course, you have to have photographs and videos that could be embedded on the documents to show what happened, what you saw during the compilation of the results. So incident reports, you can just Google up incident reporting form or incident report.pdf. You get tons and tons of incident report that you can just get a sense of, modify them. And if you're very good with AI, just ask any of Gemini, Copilot, whatever the other AI tools that are generative in nature, they'll respond to you with what to include in your form. And you can modify, add, remove items, but you have to have a form that captures what happened, that captures your worksheets for understanding the root cause and preventing it from happening in the future. And of course, that's what leads us to the post-incident investigation. The post-incident investigation helps us to establish what happened, where it happened, why it happened, how it happened, who was involved. We document, we ask questions on why at several levels, identify the root cause analysis, document them, and cascade that information to the entire organization. Because something happening in one aspect or one area, it's likely going to happen in another area if that other section or department did not get a clue that it's happened here, and this is what we discovered. And this data is generated on an ongoing basis to improve safety measures for the team. So you keep analyzing trends. How many times did this happen in the last 1 year? was involved, what kind of timing or correlation can we create about how it happened and why it happened and so on and so forth. We can begin to work on our policies. You see, some policies are just there, very simplified policy. But when we have 1, 2, 3 experiences, we'll now go back to that policy, for example, and say, no, this, for example, some organizations may not have alcohol policy. You go to the offices, you see champagne bottles, and when you come in, oh, what can I have? You have some spirits, I have beer in the fridge. They'll tell you all that, right? Because they don't really have any problem with people taking a little shot here and there during the workplace. But if they encounter intoxication leading to rowdy or unbecoming behavior from certain people and certain actions that endanger the lives of 1 or 2 persons, they'll sit back on the dining on their planning table and say, you know what, let's go create an alcohol policy. Let's embed it into so and so policy. Those things are created because we are reacting to situation. Most policies you find in most organizations they were not just put in place. They're always brought about by something. Maybe you want to take up a contract. The client wants you to assure us that you will not bring people here who will not conform to our culture. So they want to see a policy on this, policy on that, policy on that. You go create those policies, right? Something happened in the organization, and this is undesirable. This is not the kind of image you want to have. We can't have this happening around there. You create a policy around it. So most policies are reactive in nature, right? And so that's why once you put policies in place, you make sure everybody understands what is those policies. And then you have a mechanism for reviewing those policies on an ongoing basis, right? Because if you don't review those policies on an ongoing basis, there are shifts that can remove the need. There are new regulations, for example. There are economic and social changes that can remove the need for certain policies. There are new strategies for productivity and strategy for maybe enhancing a certain culture that will make certain policies counterproductive, that you need to take them out. So policies are not supposed to be handled and taken as, we have to abide by the policy no matter what. Policies should be reviewed on a regular basis to find out if they are still relevant, if they are still valid for continuous implementation. Otherwise, we change them because of the experiences we are having. And then, of course, there are local regulations. Local governments have laws, state governments have laws, federal government have laws that govern the built environment. It's important that as FMs, we understand the various regulations, everywhere from planning authority to the safety commission, to local government health officers, to environmental regulators at the state level. They all have things they are checking. There are laws already passed that created them, that were passed with certain regulations and also give them power. The law gave them power, that agency power, to create more laws. So we cannot, act in ignorance. And then, of course, whether, whatever happens, it's all down to that, communication. That's the oil that keeps everything going. All stakeholders should understand what their role is, how they can participate, ensure that there is a performance tracking mechanism to capture that people actually doing what they are supposed to be doing. And then, of course, if you want to keep humans in check, put them under surveillance. I live in the UK, and when we're on the highway, if you're driving on the highway in UK, you will see signs that says the next 3 cameras are active. Everybody behaves well. Then as you are still driving, you hear, oh, the next camera is off. See madness. And it just, why can't you just maintain the sanity you had when you knew that the cameras were on and then continue like that when you know that now that the camera is off. People just push the limits, hit the pedal, right? Just because of the notification. And one time I was even asking myself, why do they even bother to tell us that the cameras were off? Just let everybody assume that the cameras were on, and then we'll all behave normally throughout, right? So that's something about, incidents, risks, and those hazards. If people are aware that cameras are everywhere, there's surveillance, there are sensors picking up things, they tend to behave better. And to be honest with you, even everything else tend to work well, right? So, and then if we have software for analyzing this data, when these incidents occur, your certain trends in facilities are captured, we can actually integrate an AI tool through machine learning to begin to predict or foresee using the data that is being generated as we store the incidents, analysis, and data into the system, what can happen next, right? So, and these are advanced forms. Where we are right now is basically just use your spreadsheet, enter the information in the form, collect the information into a spreadsheet, do some manual analysis, make sure that things you can learn that you can teach others about that incident by just looking at the numbers and data in the spreadsheets that you are having. All right, so the thing that is very key to a continuous improvement process is testing your plan through simulations and drills. If we have an evacuation procedure, we all study it and we understand it. If in a real accident or emergency, it doesn't work, maybe you're supposed to have 100 people go to the right from this room, all of you move to the right. From this room, all of you move to the left when there's an emergency. We all understand that, right? But then a particular emergency happens and everybody goes in any direction they feel like. Maybe their friends are going one way and they start to go that way, right? So it's important to have simulations of what you have in the plan. And then use information from that simulation. So for example, if I do a drill, I start the timer, and bell goes, the alarm goes, I start the timer, I go outside and I, watch as people come out. I stop it when the last person has come in. So I know how long it takes to evacuate certain numbers from this number of floors of a building, right? And what does that do for me? It helps me to know whether to emphasize the importance of such evacuation, right? I count and check on people. Are they well? Are they okay? Any injuries? Does anybody sleep when coming out? Because that's very important. If there was a mild or serious stampede, what caused it? That's another matter I need to address, but I must first know that people came out safely and without any injury. So I must pick all of this information, and I usually have an engagement with them, just asking people, about their experience as we have this drill. Sometimes we extend it to the point where we have the fire authorities actually activated to show up and hook up the fire hydrant and see that there's water, for example, because there's so many things that are involved in such responses that if you can't simulate it and it works, if it actually happens, we will not have the means to deal with it. And safety, security, prevention of incident, accident is everyone's responsibility. We must ensure not just training, but people should be open to communication, talk freely about things like this, participate in drills. One thing I found very helpful from organizations where I've done this is make sure that if there are penalties for non-compliance or non-cooperation with safety precautions or requirements, do not pander to anybody's whim. Do not fear. Make sure you enforce that penalty to the letter, okay? Because that will serve as a deterrent. If people begin to treat it with levity, there's a high likelihood that when you have a serious situation, it will become really disastrous. All right, so that's our session for today. I did not mute you guys today. So you actually did it yourself, and I'm happy for the very good cooperation I have from this class. So let me find out if you have a question. I'm seeing the chat. Okay, says thank you. All right, thank you, Jeff. If you do have questions regarding anything we teach here, please drop them in any of our groups and our pages, Facebook, Twitter, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. Drop it there on YouTube as well as our WhatsApp and Telegram groups. We'll respond immediately once you do that. So I would invite you to follow us, connect with us, and like our pages so you can be getting updates as often as we put them out. Okay, so that's